Welcome to How Preschool Teachers Do It.
This is Alison Kentos. I am an early childhood educator.
And this is Cindy Tarabush. I am an early childhood consultant.
This podcast is for parents and early childhood professionals.
Let our experience and research-based knowledge become your guide. Hello, hello, preschool peeps.
Hi, peeps. We're back.
and we're back with a follow-up episode.
Oh, yeah.
That we mentioned during a prior episode. We're actually doing it. There are times when we mention and we'll say things like, we're going to have to do an episode about this. And then we go to plan it and it doesn't work. And we're like, that doesn't work. We're not.
Or we forget.
Or there's that.
Let's be honest.
But there have also been times where we're like, yeah, no, I don't really want to do that.
Yeah.
Not in the mood.
Or
okay.
Not in the mood for that one. Yep. Yeah. We got to be in the mood for certain ones.
But this time we are. We did an episode several episodes ago. You can look back on the podcast if you didn't hear it. And it was like things that we wish that parents knew as professionals, things we wish that parents knew. And during that episode, we said, we should do one about what I wish teachers knew. So here we are.
Here we are.
We're going to do that from our different perspectives. Alison and I have different perspectives. I have grown children, so I can do it from that perspective. Alison can do it from a slightly different perspective, having been a student and a coworker and having a niece and, all of that. So I guess I'll start my list. I have a list of 3 things I think that I thought of that I as a parent, that I wish that teachers knew. And my number one thing is I'm trying as hard as I can, teachers, and I'm doing the best I know how. And I really do have my child's best interests at heart.
Yeah.
Parenting is a 24-hour-a-day job. No one's perfect at it. And I may not be raising my children in the way you wish I was, but I'm absolutely doing it with all the heart that I have and trying my best. So please don't judge me.
Right. Because when you have a child, you are not immediately deemed an expert in parenthood. I mean, and
far from
nobody is. Far from it. Like, you are learning as you go along. You are learning as your child is learning. So it's like, that's a good one, Cindy, because I feel like people do expect.
Please don't judge me. I'm a working parent.
Yeah.
I was a working parent for a long time, right? I'm a busy working parent trying to keep everything together here, raise good human beings, teach them so many things. You have certain subjects you have to teach them in school. I have to teach them human being at home.
Yeah. Be a good human.
Right. Be a good human. Here are our family values. Here's how we want our family to function. Here's how we expect you to be in the world. Here's our boundaries that are different than your school boundaries that are, and in the meantime, my children had 2 busy working parents.
Right.
So I'm doing the absolute best that I can, and I'm very invested in the outcome of raising my children. It's not that I'm not. And, P.S., no one is the perfect parent. And I always try to remember as a professional, I'm not required to like what the parents do. If nobody is getting hurt, there's no abuse and there's no neglect, I am not required to like what they do. And it has nothing to do with me, because I can tell you that as a parent, I would not have wanted people to judge my parenting. They don't know me. I always kind of felt like that about the teachers. You don't know me.
I do feel like there are a lot of teachers out there that are judgy like that. And it's like your family, you might not as a teacher be raising your family that way because you have all this other stuff that plays into how you want your family to be. But that doesn't mean just because, say, Cindy's raising her family this way, that Cindy's way is wrong. It's
also
just
who made your way right.
It's different. Who made your way right?
There is
right. Just because you are a teacher does not mean your way is right either. There is no right or wrong. It's your family.
Right. It's you do what you want.
Like as long as you're not abusing them.
Live and let live, people. Live and let live. There's a phrase I should use all the time when I'm talking to professionals and they're telling me things about parents. I should just look at them and go, live and let live.
Yeah.
This is not, always, when I do trainings, I am always getting questions about parents and parents' reactions and what parents will say. And I'm always looking at people saying that's inconsequential. It doesn't matter. Your job is to still partner with them, which means you have to go in with respect for the fact that every family is different and every family has its different values and priorities. And much of that is influenced by my number 2 item on my list, which is if only teachers knew my culture. I really wish teachers had better training during their years of learning about education and children and professional development, even for those who may not have that background. I would love to see more education about world cultures.
That would be awesome. It
Thank
would
you.
be.
It would.
It would be awesome. As
And
a teacher,
in case you're
like,
thinking
we don't
right
get a lot of that.
You don't get a
Yeah.
lot of that, but in case
We
you're
don't
thinking
get a
right
lot of
now,
that.
we should contact Cindy for professional development about world cultures. Don't. I'm not I'm not well versed. I'm
She's actually saying don't hire.
don't. I wouldn't do it. It's not my
No, you
wheelhouse.
wouldn't, and it's not your expertise. Yeah, it's fine. But I love the honesty.
Okay. I've had people contact me and I tell them, no, that's not my wheelhouse, or I'm not the right trainer, because I'm not going to try and
And you
insert
have to
myself
be
in things
honest
that I'm
about
not
that.
expert
Yeah.
in. I know that
Yeah.
there are people who do and trainers who
do
do
that. Yeah.
to make a buck, but no, I'm fortunate that I can do the work that's actually in my wheelhouse.
Yeah.
My wheelhouse is more child development, but I really wish that people knew more about different cultures so that they could better do things like talk about not only sort of do the holiday tour, but also so that they understood where I'm coming from as a parent. Every culture has their own perspective on how to parent children. My culture has a lot of superstitions that were part of my childhood and partially part of my children's, even if we just laughed at them. We did, and we still do. But there are things that influence how you perceive parenting that are just an intrinsic part of culture. Also, culture influences how we communicate. So if I'm going to go into a meeting with a teacher, I'm communicating based on my culture. They're communicating based on their culture. If we all understood each other's cultures better, it would be better for communication. But I do see it, and I'm speaking now as a professional rather than a parent, I do see it as the education setting's job to learn the different communication styles of different cultures, and that it's really the teachers who should go into those conversations respecting the fact that different cultures communicate differently.
Yeah.
So now I'm advocating for professional development in an area I can't even cover. So go out there and find somebody.
Find someone.
And there's a lot of professional development about being culturally responsive and culturally sensitive, but I don't think that there's a lot of professional development out there about here's this culture. Here's what this culture values and teaches and prioritizes. I don't think that there's a lot of that.
There isn't, at least, well, I haven't gotten any, but
I just want to advocate for that, because my culture has a big influence over who I am as a parent and over the upbringing of my children and who they are now as adults.
Yes.
It may not admit it, but it did have a huge impact.
Oh no, it did.
Allison knows my kids. She's like, yes, your kids are totally your culture.
They are. Yeah. They're definitely a product of you guys.
Thank you. I'll take it
in a good way, a very good way. Yeah, I didn't mean it insulting. I didn't mean it to be insulting.
I'm deciding that's a good thing, Allison.
It's a bad thing.
Thank
it
you.
is a very good thing. Because you're good people, and you raised good people.
Thank you so much for that.
You're welcome.
Okay.
I also have no children, so my influence is nowhere.
That's not true. You teach children. Your influence is everywhere.
Yeah. And my dog, who's spoiled.
Okay. So I have a third thing.
That's what I give you. Oh yes, go ahead.
Well, there is. So here's my third thing. If only the teachers knew that I really wish I could be with my kid and be a fly on the wall and watch everything that's happening. And when my children were young, I'm going to go back in time now. When my children were young and I dropped them off at Before Care, it wasn't because I didn't want to be with them. I was working and helping to give them the sort of life that my husband and I wanted to have for them. And that's our that's up to us to decide, but I really wished that I could be there with them and see all the wonderful and amazing things they're doing, and see the things you're talking about when they don't behave so wonderful and amazing, so that I could address it more specifically. It's not that parents don't want to be there.
Yeah.
I've heard teachers sometimes say things like, they have a perception of somebody's socioeconomic status, and they'll say things like, these people don't have to work. Okay, number A, you don't, letter A, you don't know that.
You don't know that.
You don't know
You don't
anybody's
know
debts
that
or whatever.
at all. And I used to work with someone who told me she financially did not need to work. However, she needed it for her personal satisfaction. And she really thought that because she had that personal satisfaction, that she was a better mother.
Amen,
because
sister.
of it. All right.
Amen,
so
sister. Yeah.
people be like, well, you don't have to work. You can be with your kids. She goes, no. If I didn't work, I want to be the person I am today. And I want my children to see me as that person, as like, and so that kind of was like, wow, like that kind of changed my, like some people, no, they financially, they don't have to work.
That's right. There are some people who don't have to. I agree. Like, amen to all of that. I would not have been a good just stay at home mom, and my kids knew it. I may have mentioned this before on the podcast, I don't know, but when we would have elongated breaks, like winter break or something, and I was doing something that I rarely got the chance to do, which was like putter around and bake a cake and hang out with my kids during the day. And, and I would say to my kids, I should work less. I should stay home more. My two kids would look at me, as young as they were. They look at me and say, no, don't do that. You would be so unhappy, mommy. Miserable. We would all be unhappy, mommy. They knew. And today as adults, they do talk about how my parenting really depended upon me working in some ways. I need that. That's part of who I am. My kids knew it. They respected it, and they were fine, and they didn't feel unloved or that nobody paid attention to them, by the way. So, they're fine. They were fine. And they teased me about it back then and said, oh, for goodness sake, mom, don't do that. You would be so unhappy that you would make us all miserable. And that was what they would say to me at every winter break or every summer vacation.
Yeah. It's like, you had a week of it. Now we're done.
We're done. We're all done with each other.
We're done with each other.
I was and am a better parent because I have my own life outside the family. That's who I am. My husband knew it. They knew it, and it was fine. Definitely I'm a better parent because of that. It's something I needed. And I'll share this with you. If you are a very busy working parent, whether you need to work or you choose to work, either one, whatever, that's your family's business. I want to share this with you. My kids, because they had two very busy working parents, are two very busy working productive people who value people who work hard and who try hard and who put themselves out there and who do all the sorts of things that they grew up with. So it really didn't take away from them. It added to their values. So I hope that those people who struggle with, I wish I could be there, which, getting back to the third thing on my list, that was the third thing on my list. If you're struggling with, I wish that I could be there. Yes. And you're also teaching your children some valuable lessons about hard work and functioning in our society and taking care of yourself. Working was part of me taking care of me. And there's nothing wrong with that. I don't know why we're taught that to be a good parent, you have to sacrifice everything you are. That is not
and
the
give
truth.
Up who you shouldn't have to give up who you are as a person.
No, the more you can
should
be who
add
you are,
to it, not take away.
Add to it. The more you can be who you are, the better you are for everyone. And I just made up that saying. So now I'm going to throw it to you, Alison.
Well, mine aren't as insightful as Cindy's.
You say that, but I'm betting that they are.
All right. So I only have two things because, and my first one was that everyone has a life outside of what you are seeing. So like, this goes for coworkers too. Okay. So everyone is walking in there. Fellow teachers, fellow administrators, parents, everyone has a life outside of here, and there are struggles within that life. So you have no idea when someone comes to you, what is going on outside of this particular school or wherever you may be. And you need to treat everyone with kindness because you have no idea what their morning was like. You have no idea what their life is like outside of here. They might not share that with you, so just be kind to everyone. Everyone is struggling. Okay. So in some sort of way.
Isn't that be kind to everyone what we try or should try to teach in our early childhood classrooms, and then adults fall off the radar about it? You're right. We don't know what people are going through. And as a parent, there were times when my family was going through things and I told them, and there were times when I didn't, but I wish they just understood that you could be going through something at any time.
Right. Because there's a lot of things, at least coworker wise, that I went through like years and years and years ago, and people did not know. I didn't tell anybody. And then I show up and they're like, now they knew after the fact. They didn't know during it, and some people were very kind just because they're kind people, and other people weren't. I'm like, it just added on to my load, of all the stuff I was struggling with outside. And then I had this. So like, it was like, you never know what people are going through at home. You never know. So just treat everyone kindly.
You know what that kind of reminds me of, Allison? When my kids were little, they were in the preschool years when my father had cancer.
Yeah.
And we spent 2.5 years on my father's illness dealing with it. And it was quite a time. So it was 2.5 years of my father being very ill and getting progressively, but ever so slowly worse. And my kids were young. When my father died, my kids were like 3 and 7.
That is young. Yeah.
So they were really, really young when that illness started.
Yeah.
And, I didn't walk in to the teacher saying, just so you know, their grandfather has cancer. It became 2.5 years because it just becomes a part of your life dealing with it.
Yeah.
So I didn't go into all their teachers and say, just so you know. I told them when it looked like my father's death was on its way. My father was, this was it. The end was coming. They understood when the end was coming, because then I went to teachers and said, just so you know, we've been dealing with my father's illness for a couple of years, and it looks like it's not going to be much longer. And my kids may not be here. I did call my son, but when my father died, my son was in 2nd grade. I called the school and said, his grandfather has passed away. And his teacher knew that my father was sick. I had warned them that this was coming. Yeah. But for whole 2.5 years before that, I didn't go and talk about it to everybody all the time. Right. So that's what you're saying reminds me of. Yeah. Not everybody knew that I was raising these 2 very young children while running my father into the city for surgeries and treatments with my mom and all that stuff. So
right. And it could be anything. It could be like you're going through a divorce, you're going through someone in your family is sick, you're going through financial struggles, it could be anything. It could be like you had a really bad morning, it could be anything. So like you never know what that person is walking in, what they're going through. And we just need to be supportive and kind and nice to people, so it doesn't add more to their workload or their life load.
That's right. That's right. And your second thing, Allison?
My second thing is that there's more than one way to do things. So I, as a teacher, do things the teacher way a lot of times because that's how I was trained. But these families that are home are doing things their way based on what Cindy said, like their culture and their own thing. And skills are still being reinforced, even though they might be different than the way I would do things. I need to accept that that's okay. And we need to be a little bit more flexible when it comes to things. So
yes, it reminds me of math and long division. When my kids were learning division and I said, here, I can help you. And I start showing them long division and they're like, what's that? That's not what we're learning. But you're right. There is more than one way to teach something. You may teach something in school a certain way. And I, as a parent, may say, well, here's how I learned it, or and among teachers too, have respect for each other's teaching styles. As long as the children are learning and progressing and gaining knowledge, then what's the
Right.
difference what style the teacher has, unless the
Right.
teacher is not being kind and respectful to the children?
Right. And I feel like families will and should sometimes put a different spin on what lesson you're teaching at school based on their culture. So like I had that happen to me, I think it was last school year. We were learning about different types of families. And one of the parents wrote me, it was like, just let me know when you're doing that because I have lessons at home that I would like to teach him at home. And I was like, okay, yeah, I'll let you know. I didn't judge them. I didn't say anything. That's how they want to raise their children based on their culture and their religion and whatever it may be.
Right.
There's more than one way. We need to be flexible and just accept all of that, and Cindy's right. Even within each classroom in that school, everybody's doing things different. The kids are still learning the curriculum that they need to learn, but I will teach it differently than the teacher next door. That doesn't mean my way is right or wrong. Doesn't mean her way or his way is right or wrong. It's just different. And that's okay.
Shouldn't children see that there are different ways to do different things? I think, and I just don't see anything wrong with when I go into a school and I walk into a classroom and the two teachers are teaching basically the same thing with two different styles. I think children should be exposed to that, and children have different learning styles. So there were some teachers when I was young that I learned better than other teachers. You don't want the same thing in every room.
Right.
Plus, as an administrator, you try to match that up. If you have a choice of multiple teachers teaching a particular age group, you should have an understanding. The kids' teachers will make recommendations like, I think this child would do well with this teacher next year because we have a similar teaching style, and the kid did good with me this year, or whatever it is. I think that we need to take all the different teachers' teaching styles. I think you should have a plethora of teaching styles, and teachers should understand that everyone's going to teach this differently, and it's not a competition, because we have children who learn well from different people. And as a parent, I would have loved it if somebody would have said to my kids, this is how we're learning division here. Your families may know a different way. Why don't you go home and ask them what long division looks like? That would have been nice.
Yeah.
My kids were like fighting with me. My kids kept yelling, that's not how you do it. That's not how you do it. Why can't we say to kids, your families might have a different way to do this? Why don't you ask them?
Right. Because the way that we learned it when we were kids is totally different than what they're learning now. But maybe a child might be struggling with the way they're learning it now and might actually be able to understand the concept better with the way we did it, because everybody's brain's different,
right?
So like, but if you're just going to shut that down and be like, no, don't listen to what your parents, they learned, then you've just now lost the opportunity for the kid to understand long division when he might understand it.
Also,
old school way.
Also, if I do 48 divided by 12 and get 4 in the way that I know, and you do 48 divided by 12 and get 4 in a different way, but you still get the right answer.
Still get the answer. Does it matter?
What on earth is the difference? And that's like a math example, but I think that's true for all subjects.
A lot of things.
As long as we get to the place that we're supposed to get, folks. What's the difference? And like, even like, okay, like Cindy and I do things, some of the things the same, and some of the things very, very differently. It doesn't mean she's wrong or I'm wrong. We just think differently. We learn differently. We have different learning styles, but we also have a lot of similarities. It's not right or wrong. Okay. Like it's just, and yet we come together with our different philosophies and different ways of doing things and team together and still work and collaborate together on a weekly basis, like, correct.
And it all works out, because you don't want everything to be the same. If Cindy and I were the same person, this would be pretty boring, like it'd be like talking to yourself, right? And you don't want that.
No, I don't want that. One of me is enough. Ask my family.
Right. So like, this is what you, they didn't want to hang out with you past Christmas break.
See that? See what she did there? She went back. It's so true. Oh, okay. I feel done. I feel finished.
Yeah, we're done now. Okay. I think we're okay.
So listen, preschool peeps, if you think of things that you wish teachers knew, whether it's coworkers or people who work for you or your children's or nieces or nephews or grandchildren's teachers, please send it to us with permission to talk about it on the podcast. We would love to do that. And you do that through our contact form on howpreschoolteachersdoit.com or through our Facebook page, which is also How Preschool Teachers Do It, because that's us.
Because that's what we are.
Right? The number 2 rated preschool podcast. That's us. So thank you for listening and keeping us up there in the ratings.
Yes, that's because of you guys.
It is. It is. And we're often recommended. So thank you. And we will catch you next time on the podcast.
Bye, peeps.